So not too long ago, while I was scrolling through Facebook during an NXL weekend, I saw one of my buddies post and say, "Hey, did anyone see that gut punch that happened during the Mutiny match on the live stream?" So naturally, like so many other people probably did, I had to dig into it and see what happened. Later on, Soulless Photography uploaded a video of exactly what happened. He captured the whole match. I'll leave a link in the description down below with a timestamp of what I'm talking about, but essentially one of Mutiny's players got shot as he was tripping over a stake in the ground, and as he stood up, they were playing against GG, and one of their players was running down the field and basically put like 6 or 7 balls in his back, his neck, back of his head, side of his face, everything. Clearly overshot him a little bit. There's a lot of opinions on exactly what happened. In my opinion, I think he was kind of already starting his run down the field when the guy was standing back up. Did he overshoot him? Definitely he did. But anyways, as that guy was walking off the field and the player from GG got called out after he got hit, as they were walking past each other, the player from Mutiny basically just punched him in the gut. The dude curled around it. So for everyone who says he didn't actually hit him, he definitely hit him. And from there, it sparked a lot of aggro behavior that kind of went through the rest of the match. Later on in the match, Soulless actually had to put up a little text card in between points detailing what happened, where one of Mutiny's players, after the point had ended, they were walking off the field and they actually shot into the nets, into GG's pits, causing them to forfeit the point essentially. It said that GG got the point, and then Mutiny had to start the next point 3 bodies down. And as far as what happened with the punch, Soulless actually put some text at the beginning of the video as well, detailing that both of the players were suspended for the rest of the match, rightfully so. The player from GG recognizes that he definitely deserved it. He definitely did overshoot a little bit, and there's no bad blood between them, which is definitely great to hear. But even though there's no bad blood, even though, this didn't turn into an all-out brawl in the semi-pro fields, it's still kind of disappointing to see that in some of the higher levels of paintball, the people that, are setting examples, especially teams like Mutiny that have as much notoriety as they have, just seeing that kind of behavior from them over something like, getting a couple extra bonus balls is kind of disappointing. So naturally, a bunch of people posted a bunch of different threads with links to the video, kind of saying, what do you guys think about this? Starting discussions all over the place, not only on the YouTube comments for the video, but all over Facebook as well. Scrolling through them, I definitely feel that people landed in one of 2 different categories. Either they were really disappointed to see this, talking about how it's, if we want this sport to grow, if we want to be, if we want to see our sport on TV. And while I personally don't believe that paintball will ever find a home in the Olympics, even still, it's definitely not going to get there if we're just, brutalizing each other on the fields every weekend. But on the other side, a lot of people were posting a lot of crazy stuff like, make paintball violent again. You guys would have never survived the 15 BPS days. Tell me you didn't play paintball in the early 2000s without telling me you didn't play paintball in the early 2000s. And, definitely, yeah, I would not have survived the 15 BPS days. I have a mortgage, and I do not want to pay a 15 BPS paint tab. Of course, it's easy to rationalize why he did what he did. I mean, we've all been bunkered. We've all been, overshot a couple times, gotten a few bonus balls. I mean, I remember vividly the first time I was ever bunkered. It was my first time practicing with my team. I was just an open play kid who got invited to come, hang out with them and, see what this speedball thing was all about. There was a guy on the team. His nickname was Rabbit. I learned very quickly how he got that name as he ran me down, put probably 6 balls right into my ribs and kidneys and my back. And I felt a lot of things. Obviously, it doesn't feel good. I mean, we can, take as many hits, as we do. And, it never stops hurting. It's always going to hurt. And especially when you get stabbed in the back or stabbed in the ribs, those are some of the worst spots to get shot. I had half a mind to walk away from that practice. I literally had to you take a breather and sit out a couple points just to kind of calm myself down, because I was just like, man, do I really want to, give up open play and give up that 10-foot rule that I've, has been kind of been my saving grace all this time. And for someone to be playing at the semi-pro level, you would hope that, they're experienced enough with the sport that, when these things happen, that they would be able to shake them off, that, they just be able to just kind of shrug their shoulders and dust themselves off, walk out, and just kind of get ready for the next point, figure out what they did wrong, talk to their coach and all that stuff. All that aggressive behavior that came from that situation, and especially later on in the point, I mean, it led to their loss. Like, there's absolutely no glory in shooting the nets into the other team's pits just to spray them with a little bit of paint. First of all, it's a safety issue, and it's like, you want to overshoot on the field. You want to, get kind of like, puff your chest out and all that. That's well and fine and all. But once you actually turn it into a safety issue, that's kind of where I got to draw the line. But also for a semi-pro team like Mutiny, when, you've got a lot of money in that organization. Now, I don't know exactly how Mutiny works. I know with a lot of semi-pro teams, it's not like pro. We all understand that, the higher levels of paintball, these players aren't making a lot of money, if any at all. But still, for an organization like Mutiny, there is a lot of money that's being pumped into it. There's a lot of money being invested in you as a player. And for you to do something so just callous as shooting into the nets, and then, your team had to start 3 bodies down. You guys, I don't remember if they actually lost that point or not. I'd have to imagine that they did. But, if I was an owner of an organization like that and someone did something stupid like that and I had to start 3 bodies down, like, if it was me, you're not playing for my team anymore. All you're going to do is just get penalties thrown on yourself, get extra bodies pulled off the field, start points with bodies down. And honestly, I would rather be holding the check at the end of the event rather than them being able to say like, oh yeah, I really smoked those guys. I definitely got them with my paintballs real good, made it hurt. And with it being the semi-pro division, there's actually eyes on you. You're on the live stream. People get to actually watch these matches live and see what's going on. It's not the lower divisions that just get glanced over on PB leagues. Now, something that a lot of people said is that it's like, if you can't handle a few extra bonus balls without, flying off the rails like that, then you probably don't deserve to play at the semi-pro level. And I can definitely agree with that to an extent. I mean, obviously, if you're playing semi-pro paintball, it's not your first rodeo. You've definitely experienced, the pain that comes with this sport on numerous occasions. But if I was the owner of an organization at that level, something that I'm actually investing my money into, I want to make sure that the guys that I'm fielding are guys that I know can keep a level head. With this sport, you're going to experience a lot of different things. There's bad ref calls. Sometimes you get shot on the pack and accidentally cause a penalty for yourself. I mean, there's a lot of things that happen out there while your adrenaline is pumping and you're hyper focused on what's going on in front of you, and you might be playing against your rival team, so you've already got a kind of a little bit of angst going into the net there. But the teams that are able to dial that in and focus on what's going on and go out there and do their jobs every single point and not let the little stuff like that get to them, those are the teams that are ultimately going to win. But most importantly, these are the guys that I want to see setting the examples for the kids that you end up going to see at your local fields and playing against. Which is honestly what I wanted to talk about more than anything, is how this whole quote-unquote make paintball violent again movement and all these tough guys who, like to beat up on 12-year-olds at their birthday parties, and basically how they're holding us back as a sport. I understand why it has to be this way, but it really does suck that paintball has such a huge divide between, the higher levels of the sport at the national events a few times a year, and basically everything else is just kind of regional stuff, regional divisional tournaments. Usually you're seeing the same groups of teams at every event, and basically just kind of, your local guys hanging out at your local field. And when we try to talk about growing the sport, we got to remember that most of that happens at the local level. Pretty much everybody in the sport had to start out at their local fields, whatever was probably closest to them. I would venture to say that most of us have probably gone out on the field with a rental tipman at some point or another when we were new. And for me, that's exactly what it was. It was my friend's birthday. He invited me to come out with him and a bunch of his other friends to, one of our local fields here in Cincinnati. I ended up having a ton of fun. And sure enough, I went back the next weekend and the weekend after that. And, after a few months of playing and being a rental every single weekend, I made friends with my teammates and they, brought me in. And the reason that I was so receptive to taking that next step and, trying out speedball with the, experienced guys was the fact that these guys were really cool. I would come out and play open play every weekend. I, rented for quite a while, and then eventually I got my own used A5, Tippmann A5, that I, had an absolute blast playing with back then. And these guys, they would practice in the mornings, before open play started. And after they were done, any leftover paint that they had from practice, they'd come out to the open play fields and hang out with us, split themselves up between the teams. And, we had a ton of fun. All of them were super cool. There were a couple times where, one of the guys actually would let me play with his, fancy speedball marker, and he would shoot my A5. It was awesome. The guys were super, super cool. I had a ton of fun playing with them. So, I figured why not? Now, had they been acting like I've seen some players at our other local field act, then, I probably wouldn't be where I'm at today. If I was an open play kid and I was just getting bunkered every single game, if I felt like there was like a big like us versus them mentality, if I felt like they were just kind of, having fun, just kind of like beating up on kids, then I probably would have never wanted to play with them. I probably would have avoided speedball. I probably would have just, either stayed just, a walk-on open play kid, or I would have probably stopped going there altogether. Now, at the other field here in Cincinnati that I don't usually play at, they actually had to make it a rule that if you bring your own gear, you can only play with other people who brought their own gear, and all the rentals get to be separated, which I think, considering what I've seen go on at that field, I think is a good thing. But it also kind of sucks because I think back to when I was a new kid and when I was still, having fun with just like my old Tippmann, and how cool it was to, have some of these guys. It's like, oh, hey, they got matching jerseys. They, I could like learn something from them. I'm going to like follow this guy and kind of see what he does. It made things a lot more fun. But when I see the speedball kids just like ruining some 12-year-old's birthday party, it's really upsetting to see, because now that kid's probably not going to want to come back. Like, his mom comes to pick him up from the field, and she's like, how was your birthday? It's like, oh, I got hurt a lot. It wasn't fun. Well, now they're never going to bring them out there ever again. Talking to some of my friends who work at or play at bigger fields, this, it's not the most uncommon thing in the world. And when you have a large amount of people there, yeah, it's like, okay, put the speedballers all together over here. If you've got, an electronic gun, you get to hang out over there, make sure that the rentals stay here and have fun. And that's well and good and all. But at a smaller field like mine, open play is just open play. There's not enough people to split it up into groups like that. All of the speedballers that play there, we're pretty much on teams, and we have our team practices on the airball field away from all the open play groups. Now, there are some speedball kids or kids who bring, their own gear along, and that's fine, but we got to make sure that they get along with the rest of the players, because ultimately we want everyone to have a good time. Contrary to what a lot of people think, only the really big fields are actually making money off their speedballers, and that's just because they have so many teams showing up and buying a lot of cases of paint. If you look at my field, for example, he doesn't really make that much money off of us. We pay a little bit for our field and air. We get a deal on our paint as part of our sponsorship from the field. And, we go out there, we practice, we have a good time. It's great. Where he's actually making his money is the big groups of fraternities or sororities from one of the local colleges that usually come out and do a couple outings a year. It's the private birthday parties. It's the church groups. It's being able to rent out these Tippmann 98s over and over and over again, multiple times every single weekend. That's where his money's coming from. And if the experienced players go out there and just start beating up on everybody, these people aren't going to come back. They're not going to want to play paintball anymore. But if some kid leaves his birthday party just completely ripped apart because you wanted to just, beat up on 12-year-olds all weekend, that's a kid that potentially could have played for your team. That could have been your new snake player someday. And in some cases, even if these kids wanted to come back out to the field, maybe their parents aren't going to let them, because all they saw was their kid get ripped apart by a bunch of guys in matching jerseys who laughed about it afterwards. I'm sure there's a lot of parents who would much rather buy their kid a $150 pair of basketball shoes that's going to last them all year, so that way they can play a school sport that's going to cost them a fraction of what it would cost just to get, a full kit to get them started with paintball. It's just really disappointing to see, because there's a few guys at that field who, have been in the sport for a super long time, who love going out and playing open play, being able to play with, a bunch of rental kids, being able to kind of, bring them along with them, say, hey, go there. Hey, I'll cover you. Hey, what do you see over there? Really involving them in the sport and making it a ton of fun for them. They don't get to do that anymore because they have to go play with the other kids who ruined it for everybody. If you're one of these guys who screams make paintball violent again in the comments or advocates for this obnoxious behavior on the field, I hope that you can realize that what this is doing is hurting your local fields. It's preventing people from getting into the sport. It's making us look like a bunch of just, caveman braid weirdos who just want to go outside and just shoot at each other all day. And it makes everybody outside of our sport not take us seriously as athletes. It just makes what we do not look like a sport, but just a weekend activity for a bunch of wannabe tough guys who don't have the emotional capacity to take out their problems in a healthy way. I absolutely love paintball. It's given me so many opportunities. I love being able to have a creative outlet with my media. I love being able to go out pretty much any weekend, going to any field around me and seeing a handful of some of the best dudes I know. I wouldn't be where I'm at today if it wasn't for a group of guys being nice to me at my field. A group of guys going out of their way to make this sport fun for me. And if there's anything I've learned is that you can't just punch your way to the top. And that the only way you're ever going to get somewhere in this sport is if you take a step back, you humble yourself, you play the game, you listen, you learn. And if you show up to the field every single weekend with your chest puffed out, with a massive ego on your shoulders every time you step in the net, and if it feels like you can't go a single point without someone having to break up a fight between you and someone else, you're going to start to feel that division. You're going to start feeling real lonely real quick when no one in your area wants to pick you up for their team because they're more focused on winning and they don't want someone that they know is going to go out on that field and just start a fight with everybody, getting in the way of that. You're going to miss out on a lot of opportunities that this sport has. And I'd hate to see that happen to anybody. Paintball's brought a lot of joy to my life. Whether I win or lose, every single time I get to go out on the field, whether as a media guy or as a player, I get to have a ton of fun. And it really sucks to see that, for a lot of people, it can't just be that way. If you walk away from your field every weekend feeling a lot of anger, if you walk away from an event, not getting the outcome that you wanted, and you just feel something boiling up inside you, then I really hope that you take some time and think about what this sport is to you. Because ultimately, if you're not going to have fun, it's not worth it. My coach told me, and he tells all of us, any day that you get to go outside and play paintball is a great day. Win or lose. Every day that you get to play paintball should feel like a great day. And if it doesn't feel like that for you, reach out to me. I'd love to talk to you about it. Thanks for watching.